people can join. Sweet. All right. Okay, we will go in 3, 2, 1. What is up, everybody? My name is V or Vaibhav. I'm the founder of Smartly, and we've got a fantastic guest over here, Valentin from Find Email. I do not know if you heard of him, but if you haven't, I don't know what you're doing. Find Email has been all over the place right now, has pretty much become one of the most accurate email and data providers in the market. How he does it, I guess let's see if I can figure it out today. I'm gonna try debug that myself and try copy it. I'm kidding. But it'll be great to understand how he approaches data, because the reason for this interview or this front and back discussion is he obviously gets to speak to a lot of people who parse out millions of rows of records, and we get to send those emails. But it's more important to understand from the source what is unique, what is important, and what are people doing nowadays that is giving them that bleeding edge. So Valentin, if you don't mind running a quick introduction about yourself, and we can run straight into the questions.
Yeah, sure. So welcome everyone to the first Find Emails webinar about obviously data accuracy will be the main topic here. So for those who don't know me yet, it's Valentin, founder of Find Email, which is a B2B email data provider and prospecting automation tool. So actually my background is I have a tech background actually, and I just learned sales into the trenches when I had to sell my first SaaS product, which was actually in the SEO space, so not at all a sales tool. And that's basically how I learn about cold emailing and all that, and notice, like, as an outsider, what was weird about the status quo, fact that you had to purchase data somewhere, verify it somewhere else, and you're not even sure if that's still good or anything. So I took that mission to simplify that workflow that I found weird. So yeah, excited to chat with Beva from Smartly. Obviously, is a big player as well in the space, building one of the best, if not the best, email sending tool for cold emails. So if you need a tool for that, definitely check out Smartly. And without further ado, I think we can get
Let's
straight
kick off.
into it.
Let's kick off. All right. So for those, for the way this conversation is going to happen, I know this is run by Findy, but we're effectively I'm just gonna drop some questions. Like I said, I want to prune out as much information as I can. So it's a Valentin, first question, right? From all your customer conversations that you've had or your own campaigns, what's been the net effect of email accuracy or data accuracy for your conversion rates? I know it's a stupid question, but I think sometimes this needs to be answered. It's an important one.
Yeah. So the main effect of data accuracy is actually twofold. So the first one is you have better sales efficiency, because if you don't have bad data, that means everything you do is worth it. Like, you're not spending time with customers that are outside of your ICP because you thought they were, but actually you had the wrong data. So you're not spending time, sending emails to the wrong people. So whenever you have limited sending volume available, obviously that means you can reach out to more people that can and close more deals, because you're not wasting your sending volume capabilities on people that will never close. And the second order is that you have actually better metrics, because the effect of having bad data inside your cold emails using overall your sales process is that basically your metrics get screwed, and you have a lot of noise in there. And so as a result, it means you are taking wrong decisions because your numbers aren't correct. Like, you think you're getting X% of replies, and you may think, oh, that's bad, I need to improve that. But actually, it's not a matter of your copywriting that's off. It's just that you got 20% invalid emails, and you send emails to the wrong person, and so on and so forth. And so your overall numbers they don't mean anything, and they aren't usable anymore. And worse, it's not that they're not usable, they actually point you in the wrong direction, which means you spend even more time on things that you shouldn't, and that
Makes sense.
decreases your overall sales efficiency.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And on that note of, I guess, sales efficiency, I'd like to understand a bit more about any examples that you can share, right, from your customers' data that you've got access to or your own campaigns. Um, on yeah, very simple, like good quality data. What's been the net effect? Has that led to better deal flow?
Um, well, I think you actually probably have better data than me, because
Mhm.
once we provide the data, we're
Yeah.
basically blind on what happens then,
Yep.
because we share, we send the people to you for the sending part, and so
Yeah.
all that part that happens after us, we don't have as much like data as probably
Information on.
you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. Well, I can
So
jump in and
maybe
answer that question very quickly. Yeah, it
yeah.
makes a night and day difference. If you've got good quality information or good quality data where you're not worrying about the bounce rates or being marked for spam, like to your first point, you want to ensure that you've got the right ICP, because trust me, you do not want to be selling food to people who are not hungry. You want to be selling people to food who are hungry, right? It's the same person, it's just a different time of the day. So it's about capturing them at the right time. So you really want to jump into the pain point. So yeah, night and day difference. You can have the same persona of leads, but if you're not tapped in that exact point, you're going to lead to a sense of failure. And that sort of drives me to this really interesting question that I have for you that we spoke about a bit with respect to a situation where you've dealt with respect to a net negative effect of targeting stale ICP data. So there are times where a persona fits your, or a person fits your persona, right? They look like the ideal customer profile, but they really are not, simply because of maybe the tools you're using, LinkedIn or so on and so forth. So I'd love to get your understanding of what I'm trying to understand over here, and maybe how you solve that as well.
Yeah, so that reminds me of something, a little anecdote I saw on Twitter, I think, or something. And someone was pasted a screenshot of a reply they got from the cold email campaigns. And
Mm,
he was sending cold emails to a specific industry in the tech or something, and
mm.
someone replied back saying, "No, sorry, we actually sell chocolates, so it's not useful for us."
Yeah,
And that
fair
just
enough.
shows, like, you know, obviously that person wasn't gonna buy whatever they were selling,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's just they did the whole cold email process, which obviously is like taking time and effort to set up, and all that to end up on that uh, thing that will never close. So,
uh-huh.
um, what was the question again?
So,
Sorry.
this is the question is mainly around, let's talk about stale data, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
LinkedIn is often used as a HubSpot to go ahead and pull out information. But you raise an interesting point where it might not always be accurate, because the way LinkedIn does its filtering is not exactly how the common world, including me, assume it to do it. So if you can dive into that a little further and tell us why and what we need to be careful with, that'd be good.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing to note with LinkedIn, and it's the same for basically all data sources that you're going to
Hmm.
use, is that you need to really understand how they work, like a bit internally, or how they how the filters work,
Uh-huh.
because the way you think they work is not necessarily how they work, and
Yeah.
so the data you get back, if you don't understand it correctly, you may jump to a conclusion that is wrong. Like you may think,
Hmm.
"Oh, this it's definitely my ICP. I entered this in
Hmm.
this filter," when
Hmm.
actually that's not what you actually meant by using this filter. So, one quick example of that, very common on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, is when you use the keyword search. So using the bar at the top,
Yep.
you
Yep.
can enter keywords, and for those that are a little more advanced, you can use
Yep.
like Boolean expression with or and whatever.
Uh-huh.
Um, and intuitively, you think, okay, if the keyword appear is in I'm searching for is in the profile, definitely that person is in my ICP and is relevant. When actually, what you need to know is that LinkedIn is looking for the keyword everywhere on the profile. And what can happen is, for example, the keyword is in there for in a job description from a job that person had 10 years ago, and since then like he is doing completely a different thing, actually way outside of your ICP. But LinkedIn, like a little bit, I won't say stupid because it's just do
Yeah.
what it's supposed to
Yeah.
do, looking
Yeah.
for the keyword in the profile,
Yeah.
and it gives you that result. But intuitively, you would think what you were actually meaning to do is looking for that keyword or expression inside like something that's relevant. So the current job or the current
Uh-huh.
description of that person or current
Uh-huh.
headline or whatever. But that's not what it's doing. And so you might extract those search results with FindML or any other extraction tool and sending emails to those people thinking definitely those are hyper targeted because I've made a very advanced Boolean
Yeah. Yeah.
search with
Search.
my
Yeah.
keywords, and if they
Mm.
don't, if they have all those keywords in their profile, definitely. But it's not necessarily the case, and that comes from the fact that you overinterpreted what LinkedIn would give you, and that's the case for the other filters as well. So you really need to be careful with that, and that's a similar philosophy for any data source. Like you need to
Yeah.
know how the data is output, like,
Parsed. Yeah. Yeah.
but why does that data is in the results.
Okay. So what can people do right now to fix that? I get that it was new for me. I get that, for example, if someone put like to your example, right? They sold chocolates, but it was like in a job 5 years ago, which has no relevance over here. Um, is it a LinkedIn filter that we can drop in? Does Findy solve for that? What is the current fix in the market to you know solve this issue?
Well, FindMail does a bit of that specifically for Sales Navigator. So I won't go too much into the technical details here
Yeah.
because I don't think that that's pretty much
Mm-hmm.
relevant. But basically, in the export, we add additional columns that will tell you if yes or no the filters match exactly the Sales Navigator filters. So, and we try to rework it a little bit so that it actually match what you would seek more intuitively. So, for example, on that keyword example thing, uh, we would actually look for that keyword or expression inside where well it was telling, so current job description and
And
current
description. Yeah, yeah,
description.
yeah.
And if the keyword isn't there, like we will highlight it for you so that maybe that lead is so that lead is in your results. Maybe you should check this out because it could
Yep.
be irrelevant because maybe it's the case that I mentioned, the keyword is somewhere where you don't care
Somewhere
and
else is how it would be. Yep. Makes sense. Makes sense. So I know you don't maybe experience this as much, but you told me at the start of this conversation you went into a mission to fix, poor data accuracy and so on and so forth. So maybe you can dive a bit into your own personal experience or people around you, because I think this is important for people to know the resolution for this problem. And you can't just go pull out cheap data from different places and expect things to work out. There are net negative effects. Can you talk about any examples of what poor data or inaccurate data has led to in terms of company reputation?
yeah. So for example, one thing that actually struck me, so when I first learned about cold emails, which was maybe 2-3 years ago, so not
Yeah,
that long actually.
yeah,
um, I I signed up for Apollo at the time, which
yeah,
were already quite an established player, and
yeah.
that's the first tool I was using. And I was browsing around, and I remember vividly checking like what the data was like,
Mm.
and I noticed if I visited the Google company profile on Apollo, the Twitter link they gave was like not the Twitter of Google, like it was something rubbish.
Right. Okay. Right.
And I was like, wait a minute. So this is Google, like this isn't a obscure
A random
little
company. Yeah.
company
Yeah.
somewhere else in the countryside where okay, it's maybe hard to get
Yeah.
accurate data. And they couldn't provide, they like that data point wasn't reliable.
Uh-huh.
And that was my first red flag. I was like, okay, I can't trust this platform 100% blindly. Like, I need to be careful about what's going on here, because otherwise I'll just mess up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my first impression of Apollo. And so, and the first impression gives, like, stays quite a long time.
Yeah, last impression. Yeah,
and
100%.
and I can share other examples as well. Like, for example, I never used Seamless.ai,
Yep.
but when I was in my when I was, not doing what I'm doing right now,
Mm-hmm.
I remember receiving cold emails from them that was not relevant at all at the time.
Yeah,
Obviously, if they reach out
yeah,
now, it's not
and
relevant, but it
yeah,
could actually be like, I'm a founder, maybe,
sure.
Um, but at the time, it was not relevant at all. And from that time, I remember that company as, like,
You've kept like
yeah,
a
spammy
bias in your
behavior.
head. Yeah.
But actually, I've never used the product. Maybe the product is
Yep,
incredible. I'm
yep,
sure
yep.
there's great people there, but
Yeah,
I just have that negative bias now with them.
100%.
And I'm sure that that many people have similar stories. And okay, we often hear, like, if you send cold emails, no one will remember. And that's true. Like, I don't remember most of the cold emails, even if they're
Yep,
bad,
yeah,
that I receive. But sometimes you actually remember them if they're particularly bad, or, for some reason, some that you remember. And so, uh, it's important. Yeah, that's the effect of bad data on reputation. And we see it all the time on LinkedIn. People, sharing bad cold emails. And sometimes it's, well, I wouldn't say it's deserved. Like, it's never deserved, but people share that. And if you're
yeah.
on the spotlight, because you didn't do your homework, well, that's,
That's on you.
that's quite hard to track. It's like word of mouth. You're
Yep,
seeking to get positive word of mouth, but as much as possible,
you've got the other
avoid
way around.
having negative word of mouth.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. So if I can summarize that, we've obviously spoken about the fact that it leaves the end lead a pretty bad taste in the mouth, which is completely fair. And the other one, you pretty much get publicly shamed nowadays for sending the wrong person the wrong thing. So yeah, I guess it goes to say that you need to be very contentious of the the information that you pull out. One thing I can add on over here is okay, we've spoken about the net negative. What's a way to resolve and fix this? One thing is don't buy data lists, right? Some people go ahead and buy data lists from like third-party vendors. Don't do that. Ensure that whenever you are going ahead and using Find Email, Apollo, Sales Navigator, that you actually keep a very clear folder structured tab of the filter that you run, because just by following very simple steps of that, you prevent yourself from going down a mess, and you ensure that whenever you're creating a campaign, it's attributed directly to that persona that you're reaching out to. 500 employees, this, that, in this industry, in this niche, etc., etc. So then you can curate your entire message to it there. So awesome, great points there. I want to jump into maybe if you can give me a flow of collecting leads to finally launching a campaign when someone's pulled data from like a weak source. Because it's all about data and sales efficiency right now in this call, right? So let's talk about the worst. Like if you actually don't have a good data source, how does that look like for someone? Like what's all the trials that you need to go through? And then maybe we can paint a picture of how life will actually be if you've got a good data source. Mm.
Well, so, bad data source. So, first thing you will deal with if you don't have a trusted data provider is a lot of time wasted, because
Mhm.
you will have to purchase either a separate solution to verify, for example, the emails especially, and maybe other data points as well. Maybe you need to re-enrich some of the stuff if they're either incorrect or lacking on some of the data points. And you will probably, and that's very common actually, even on big players like Apollo I mentioned,
Mhm.
need to spend a lot of time manually reviewing uh, the data. So
Every single lead.
so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
because if you can't trust your data provider basically. Well, that means okay, maybe 60% will be valid, but you don't know which.
Yeah.
And if
Yep.
you don't
Yep.
want to mess that up, then you're forced to, okay, I'll need to go. And I I'm seeing people spending hours and hours, and like the overall sales team, SDR time,
Uh-huh.
spending like in
Mhm.
Excel or Google Sheets,
Mhm.
going through each and every row and making
Mhm.
sure it's correct. And
Mhm.
all of that adds up. And when you see
Mhm.
like what's costing
Mhm.
money in a business is like
Mhm.
people's time, like salaries.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you're chipping out on your data
Mhm.
provider to save $50, $100 a month for your overall team to spend 6 hours every week manually
Mhm.
reviewing the data because
Mhm.
you've got lots of incorrect, you're in the red. Like it doesn't make any business sense. So
Fair enough. I guess what I want to drive on top of that with respect to what you've said, um, what is the solution though? Like, what are some automations people can use? I know I've sort of thrown this left field at you. Are there some bounce detection softwares you can mention, cache roll softwares you can mention, um, tools that you think will, you can obviously throw Findy in as well. What are some tools that people can use to get that sense of safety? Because like to your point, depending upon the source or the persona you're targeting, Apollo sometimes can give some pretty drastically poor quality information, but they're getting better, but sometimes it can be pretty bad. So keeping that in mind, how can I safely be cleaning my list in an efficient way?
yeah, so the first thing obviously is to pick very carefully your data provider so that as much as possible you reduce, you know, everything
But
that
let's say I
the
picked a
post
bad
processing.
data provider. Let's say I picked whatever it is, right? Some random data provider. We've got the wrong stuff. But what is the next step that I can do to make sure I can get the best out of it? Is Findy the solution? If it is, obviously please share about it. Or is there other things that you think people can do?
Well, on the email side, so
Yeah.
in terms of emails, obviously Find Email can help. Other email verification tools can help as well.
Hmm.
So if you, so some well-known would be like Zero Bounce, Never
Sure.
Bounce, T Bounce, anything that
But can
has
I
bounce on
ask,
it probably.
can I ask, because obviously this is your, like, simply I'm also happy to answer how like sending works. Like, um sometimes when I use zero bounce or debounce, even after that I get a pretty bad bounce rate sometimes, right? So why is that? Is it that they're using the same IPs to test the validity of an email combination? Can you help us understand that?
Yeah, so uh, it first depends um, what emails you're using
Uh-huh.
in the output, because basically what those tools do, they don't really say do this or do that. They just
Uh-huh.
try to classify in different categories, and then
Uh-huh.
it's more or less up to you to decide what
Whether
risk
it works.
level you want to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
take.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Some tools they give like a percent confidence. You don't really know
yeah.
what
Hmm.
that means, like
Hmm.
86%, 86% confidence.
Yeah.
I don't know, should I send, should I not send? You don't know. So then it's up to you. So it's depending on what you decided with that changes. Then to answer your question more specifically, in terms of bounces, one thing people sometimes don't realize is that there's a lot of reasons why an email might bounce.
Uh-huh.
And it's not always due to bad data. Actually, you could have
Okay.
other problems. I'm sure you're facing them all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, domain reputation,
Yep.
and for
Yep.
even some domains, you have the right email, you have a perfect reputation, but if the IT of that domain decided to be very strict for the external emails
Uh-huh.
that you received, they might have put like firewall very strict that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
blocking some
Mm-hmm.
IP block, blocking some based on the
Yep.
content, whatever.
Yeah.
And you might be blocked there even if you did everything right. So it's
Yep.
it's very difficult to get down to 0%.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that's not the goal. Like, you shouldn't aim for 0% bounce, but you should at least do what's possible to remove
Minimize
like
that.
the
Yeah.
obvious
Mm,
invalid ones. Like,
mhm.
obviously, if you're sending to emails that are known to be invalid, if you check them out, then it's cheap. Just do it.
Um, I want to drive into this very quickly because some people over here watching this, attending this from different streaming platforms, they sometimes think it's okay. Like it's okay for us to just have a bunch of leads. Let's just hammer it. It's fine if we pull down 100,000 leads. It's volume is what matters to us, right? So how do you, as someone who's built and he's trying to build this mission towards quality data, how do you get companies leaderships to focus and promote a data driven culture? Like, because for all of us this matters. Like, we're all sales professionals, and sometimes when your CRO or your head of sales comes and says, no, it doesn't matter, here's 100,000 leads, I want you to send a message out to them. How do you get, what's the message? How do you get the leadership team to focus on quality, and drive that down as a top down conversation?
Well, actually, the point you need to make when that happens is that data accuracy is even more important the more you increase the volume. Because if you
Mm-hmm,
have
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
5% bounce rate on 10 emails, like, your domain is fine. Like, you're not gonna get in jail. If you have 10% bounce but on 10K emails, that is an issue. Like, that is affecting your domain reputation. And so after that, like, you may be sending another 10K emails because you want to drive volume, but you will actually send all those leads down the drain because it's too late. You didn't do your homework for the first campaign, and now your domain reputation is ruined,
Yeah, yeah,
and all your emails are now landing in spam. And you either don't realize this and say cold emails don't work,
yeah,
or which is actually very common. Like,
yeah,
I could bet that many people that
yeah, yeah.
say
No, no,
pick up the
yeah,
phone, and
yeah,
cold emails don't work.
yeah.
They Some of them probably they just never made it the right way.
Give it a shot. Yeah, yeah,
And so that was the first thing. And if you actually notice that okay, you messed up, your domain is ruined, you will have to spend even more time, like, creating new domains, warming them up, and
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
time lost for your
yeah, yeah,
overall sales team. Like, just because
yeah,
you didn't do your homework the first time, 2 weeks where you basically have zero deal flow, or
yeah.
even if not more, and it's a mess. Like, that is costing you a lot of money. And
A
so
ton of money. Yep.
if you can, like, make that point to your leadership and say, okay, if we don't do that, we might lose 2-3 weeks of revenue. I think they should
It's a
actually
very good
care a bit
pitch.
more about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I love that approach. I think if you can numericize it, it becomes very easy. If you want to go ahead and say the fact that you will have the chance of your mailbox increasing the spam rate, or the chance of it going in spam increases by 3%, and each percentage, if you can give an attribution to the amount of revenue lost, and then you can say, okay, if we send 1,000 shit leads, it drops by X%. And that becomes a very simple math funnel for you to go back to take to your team and be like, yeah, look, each time we're doing this, we're losing this much revenue simply by a game of math. So thank you so much for that. I think I've got maybe one more question, but we'll probably open this up for Q&A as well. So feel free to start dropping your questions in Q&A. We've got Valentino over here, like I said, and the dude knows everything about how email verification validation works. If you've got questions about which data provider, source to use, tool to use, um, I think everyone's got that, right? Why do you have to pick this or Findy versus this? So drop all your questions in. This is a golden opportunity to speak to the guy. He's the main person behind this. He's built it with his raw hands, and he'll be able to give you that answer. So while people are just drawing up a question, I guess I have a bit more of a drop question in for you. Uh, what's the lead source that you think people are not focusing on that they really should?
Well, hard question. So,
Loaded question.
yeah, um, well, actually, people are using, like, I'm not gonna lie, people are using the right data source often, which is LinkedIn. Like,
Okay.
it's
Mhm.
like then after uh basically every other data sources will be very specific to your target audience. So,
Yeah.
for example, some lesser known names are things like, Crunchbase, Starleads, uh, scrapping various
Yeah.
directories
Yeah.
that are very
Yeah.
specific to an industry.
Yeah.
Targeting startups, I will scrape like
Uh-huh.
YC, the other incubators or whatever. But that is very, very specific. So it's not applicable to many people.
Uh-huh.
And that's why the most generic source will be LinkedIn. People already use that.
There. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Mm.
to come back to our previous point, like if you're using LinkedIn, make sure to actually, like, there's not 100 sources to learn. So if you're
Mm.
focusing on
Mm.
LinkedIn, that's good, but at least make sure that you're using it correctly, that you understand the ins and outs of how everything works, to make sure that you actually use it the most efficient way. We have some guides on that in the Find Email blog if people want to learn about that and want to get started.
Easy.
And you
Love it.
probably have guides as well.
Yep. Yep. So there's a bunch of questions coming in. I'll answer. I'll drop that questions in for people, but I think I've got another one from my Slack. Some people are in our Slack trying to ask questions about here. There's a question from Emily that's popped in over here saying, "Can you go a bit further into the mechanics behind how email verification works? I understand that this is a secret sauce, but if you could give us some advice on the technicalities, it will help us be more confident when we're doing our what? When we're doing our selection for email softwares. I think she's trying to figure out how to go, whether it's Findy or another tool. Since you've built it, can you give some, uh, to the best you can? What exactly are you doing? Like a dig check? Are you doing an MX record check? What exactly are you doing? Or what do you think people are doing? And what should we look out for? And I think it's a question for me as well, because I also would like to know that.
Yeah, so actually, there is a secret source part, but most
Yeah.
of the email verification tools work a bit the same way. That's why there's so
Yeah.
many of them that
Yeah.
gives very similar results.
Yeah.
So the main technique is asking the SMTP server, so the email
Yeah.
server, directly, and it's really like, uh, you think I'm simplifying it, but it's really
Yeah.
like that. Like you literally ask the server through code, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, hello, this email exists, and he replies back yes or no. That's the
Pretty
best
much it.
case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
The trick is, some of the email servers, they won't reply to everyone.
Uh-huh.
They will only reply if
Uh,
you actually have
an
a good
email to send.
IP. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And some will be intentionally lying. They will say
Okay.
yes, but
Mhm.
the email actually doesn't exist. So
Doesn't exist.
that's a bit
Okay.
tricky to handle.
Uh,
They will say no, but actually the email does exist. So those are the
right.
tricky edge case to handle.
Mm.
But for the most part, that's basically how it works. And if you have heard about catch-all
Yep. Yep.
status, which is
Mm.
usually like a separate status in
Mm.
those email verification
Mm.
tools, that basically means that the email server that you ask is saying yes to anything. So you could check, you're asking, does rubbish email at domain.com
VC.com exists. Yep.
exist? It'll say yep, for sure. But obviously it doesn't exist really, and if you're sending, it will bounce.
Mm.
And so that's why all those providers just put those domains in a separate category, because they can't check if that email exists, but they can't say it doesn't exist as well, because
Sure.
maybe it
Sure.
does.
Sure.
And so that's a specific category that is risky. So that's how, like,
The
the
system
majority
infrastructure
of
works.
email service verification
Interesting.
works. And
Interesting.
then you have other players, like what we do as FindEmail is, so we use that, but on top of that, we try to go a little deeper, and that's where I can't share exactly the specifics of what we
Sure.
do,
Yeah, that's
because
fine. Yeah.
obviously the 10 others would like to know.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is where
No,
we
that's
bring
fair.
the
Uh,
innovation. But
Sure.
this is where we try to go a little deeper and handle all those little edge cases a bit better than the others,
In more
and
nuanced. Yeah.
using other techniques to
Mhm.
being able to still give a valid result even when the server doesn't give you the real truth, and
Sure.
you need to
Okay.
go and ask someone else basically.
Makes sense. Okay, that's cool. So we've got some questions rolled in. The first one I know is going to be biased, but maybe you can give us an unbiased answer if possible. How do you compare Findy to ClearOut?
um so I'm actually not very familiar with ClearOut, so I apologize for that. I
Okay,
do a
that's
lot
all
of
good then.
testing,
Yeah,
but
not sure.
and
We'll skip that. We'll go
there's
to
so
the
many of
next
them,
question.
I must say. But from what I've heard, and because
Uh-huh.
I also share with other
Uh-huh.
people, ClearOut will be better than FindEmail if you need personal emails. For the simple reason, FindEmail doesn't provide any, so obviously
Yeah,
we
fair
won't be
enough.
very good at that.
Mhm.
So that can be a good source if you're looking for personal emails. For
Okay,
B2B
cool.
emails, I can't comment. I didn't really
Sure, no,
benchmark.
that's absolutely fair. Fair enough. Cool. Elliot's got a good question over here. I use Apollo and FindEmail. I find with Apollo, once I set the filter down for my ICP in the target country, maybe there's about 10,000 leads. And after Findly, I only get 5,000 verified leads. How can I get more leads for my targeted country? Do I use another tool alongside Apollo, or do I just expand my countries? That's a great question, because sometimes what ends up happening is once I pass my list through Findy, it like rips apart half of them saying, yeah, half these are shit, right? But I still need to send 10,000 leads. So what's your suggestion? Do we expand the reach that we need to send out to, or do I just go to another software?
Um, yeah, so this really depends on your ICP first of all.
Mm-hmm.
So if the easiest thing is if your ICP is like big and you have a big total addressable market, and you want to go the easy road, just expand and go in another country or another segment or
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and just use that. Because the thing is, if you want to get more out, but if you're not in that position and you like basically are limited to these 10K people only, then that's when you will start to take some risks. Maybe send emails to emails that are risky, that I wouldn't use if I want to keep my bounce rate under 5%.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any other solution, like you need to reach out to those
Choice.
people,
Yeah.
it's if it's that or nothing, like you can still try even if
Yep. Yep.
that's
Yep.
risky, as long
Yep.
as you understand what you're doing and the risk there, you can try to go and enrich
Mm-hmm.
with something else that may
Mm-hmm.
not give as much verification,
Yep.
and try with that. Or um, you can also, that's what I do usually, is that's when a multi-channel approach as
Yep.
well can
Yep.
work. So
Yep.
for all
Absolutely
the
right.
people
Yeah.
that I'm not sure I can send a valid email to,
Ping
I'll
them on
try put
LinkedIn.
them in my LinkedIn campaign,
Yeah.
or I'll
Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
cold
Yeah.
call them or whatever.
Yeah.
And that way I can still reach out to them, but I'm not risking my domain reputation.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna sort of chime in and say, is like if you are not able to do that and your ICP shrunk and you're sort of lost, more likely than not, the LinkedIn profiles that they provide are pretty much spot on, because most of these tools have just built their database of LinkedIn. So you can just do a multi-channel approach where if you can qualify a lead to not match a certain criteria and just be like, yeah, it's okay, I'll still message them. I'll hit them up on LinkedIn, SMS, phone call, voice drops, Twitter, whatever it is. So that's an easy win. But yeah, if you don't want to do LinkedIn based approach, then yes, Elliot, an easy solution is to effectively expand your network base, which is go through separate countries, or alternatively try another data source. To be honest, but I think the multi-channel approach that Valentin said is a great one. I'll take, I guess, one more question over here is Archie asked, he's a beginner in cold emails, or they're a beginner in cold emails. They've set up their Smartlead account, added 15 mailboxes. It's all warmed up. Everything's good to go. But it's time to get quality leads to start campaigns. What would you focus on?
Well, the easy answer, like if your ICP is on LinkedIn, which is probably the case,
Yeah,
except if you're on really specific niche,
yeah,
like pick Sales Navigator, maybe read our guide on it, like how to use Sales Navigator on the Find Email blog. Takes 5 minutes to go through and understand a bit how the filter works, so you don't spend hours doing something that is not worth it. And once you've got a good understanding of how it works, set up Find Email, set up your ICP. Try to keep your audience limited. Like you don't want to outreach to everybody that you can right away. Start with a specific
segmenting.
segment,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
send a message that is very relevant to that segment, even if
yeah.
that's only part of your audience. Start with that. So build your search on LinkedIn, export that with Find Email, and push that to Smart Lead with
Mm,
integration, and
the
you're
API.
good to
Yeah,
go. Once you've like written your email copy and tested that segment, if you're just starting out, more like the best tip I could give is to give yourself um, some time, and allow yourself to test stuff. So
yeah.
test different segments in terms of target audience, test different copy for each of them, test different angles, and
Mm,
take 200 people there, 200 people there, 200 people there with various messages,
yeah.
pull all that on Smartlead, and then analyze the result, like what gave you the best reply.
Best result. Yeah,
Where those people reply positive,
yeah.
and did they lead to a conversion? And then you can
Jump on a call.
optimize and double down on what works or not.
Makes perfect sense. Someone asked a question about, okay, how does it actually work? If you don't mind, I'll answer it for you very quickly because I've done email verification tools as well in the past. The question is, if you have a name and a surname in a company, then do you pretty much work through an X amount of potential email variations to ask the server if they exist? Yes, that is pretty much one of the ways that effectively works through it in a very nascent format. Valentine obviously knows a much more elaborate answer to that question. But without consistently trying to press him to give his secret sauce away. A, most email verification tools or email finding tools pretty much go to an iterative process of first name dot last name, f initial dot last name, whatever the common patterns are, and then try get a response, 200 or a success check when they're trying to do an MX hit. But one last question, perhaps, or two last questions. Mike's got a great question over here, and I'd like to get the answer as well. So, do you think, Valentine, there'll ever be the best email finder as one source over, than doing a waterfall technique like Clay? Or will there be a best waterfall technique in a single source? I guess the question is, there's so many data providers in the market, and more keep coming. Are they really that different? Or are they what why do you think, as you or also data provider in some sort, your verification tool data provider, why do you think there's so many that come up, and more importantly, uh, are they really that different? Can we actually say, yeah, ZoomInfo is this different from Findy, that's different from Apollo, that's different from Ocean.io? Yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts.
So yeah, very little topic.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm actually the first surprised to see how many like new companies are
tools.
in the
Yeah,
space. Because when I
yeah,
obviously started that
yeah,
like 1.5 year ago,
yeah.
basically there weren't as many. There was
Mm-hmm.
only like established players, but
Mm-hmm.
any innovation in the space was quite slow. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone was using the same data
Mm-hmm.
providers for the same years, and there were like new actors. So I tried to bring a new angle, and everything seems to, well, and it's the same in many industries, but uh, the tech stack now, just the speed of innovation just increase, and it's the same for other industries as well. So for the email finder market as well, more and more innovation happens. So to answer the question on the waterfall, well, actually, we try to get as much coverage as possible, so that
Mm-hmm.
if you put us on the first spot on the waterfall, like usually you probably cannot get many emails from other providers unless you're taking like more risk than in my opinion you should, but
Yeah.
again that depends on your specific
Yeah.
situation. um and so yeah, many emails that we didn't give them on purpose. And if
Mm-hmm.
you give, if obviously all the other providers that do not necessarily provide uh, verification at all, or
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
at not the same level,
Uh-huh.
will be able to give you more emails, but the risk level is not the same. FindEmail
Mm-hmm.
is one of the strictest out there.
Yep.
Hunter is very strict, is quite strict as well. Some are trying to maximize coverage at the detriment of their
Uh-huh.
accuracy. For example,
Uh-huh.
Apollo can pretty much give you an email probably maybe almost all the time, but it's quite well known that not all of them are valid. And so there's that trade-off. So it really depends where you are on that risk level.
Spectrum. Yeah. Yeah.
um
Okay, cool. No,
yeah,
that
yeah.
makes absolute best sense. Thank you for that. Elliot's got one more question and we'll call it a day after that. I think it's a great question. If I set up subdomains instead of separate domains, why do people say I need to go with separate domains instead of subdomains? If you're okay, I can just answer that very quickly. The answer is
Yeah.
super simple. Reputation is domain specific. It's not email specific. It's not SEO where each subdomain has its own reputation and its own domain rating and so on and so forth. In emails, it's all rooted to the primary domain. So that's why you're always recommended to get separate parallel domains. So cool. I think this was fantastic. I've come away learning a lot about this. So thank you. Valentin, if people want to find you, any closing remarks that you want to share before we call it a day? I think people will be pretty excited.
Yeah, so lots of questions there. If you have more questions, or questions that come up after the fact, in your shower or anything, uh, just feel free to send me an email or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to share what I know and give a hand to people starting, or just people doing cold emails in general. Always happy to help. I'm sure WebApp can also help, especially on everything that is more than
Email
me,
sending side. Yeah.
the email sending and so forth. So yeah, I think we both can answer your are very happy to answer your questions. So feel free to send that, and yeah, make sure to check out Smartly and FindEmail. And we both have lots of resources you can check if you want to learn more and go a little deeper into what are the best practices in the space and how to do stuff. So FindEmail blog, FindEmail YouTube channel, Smartly blog, Smartly Slack, Smartly YouTube channel. I don't know if you have any other places where with
No,
cool
those are the
resources,
three.
but
Those are the three. Yeah. Yeah.
well, definitely check
Easy.
all
Awesome.
that, and you'll be a cold email expert, basically.
Easy. Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. We've got a lot more fun ones coming up. Some pretty big players. So keep a lookout for this. If you've attended this event, please leave a rating. Send us an email with some feedback on what you thought about this. The recordings will be shared. So thank you. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your day. Speak to you all soon. Goodbye. I'm gonna go
Thank
sleep
you for
now.
coming,
Woohoo.
everyone. That's the wrap for
The
that
first one.
webinar.
Yes, that's it. Love
First
it. Love it. Love it.
FindEmail.
Yeah, first FindEmail webinar. Awesome. All right. I guess we can close this event.